Hello everyone! It appears that I have been grooving out to Cobalt Core music on my own because I had the desktop audio muted, so that's fun. Hey there Amka, yeah, I fixed it. I just didn't realize that it was not actually coming through the stream audio. Let me just calibrate a few things. No. Yeah. Okay. Oh, also I should turn off my AC. It's finally, like, the heat wave is over, and so I can actually, like, sit here and talk to you without super intense noise canceling, which I imagine is still on, actually. Let me turn that off, because it's gonna make my audio quality absolutely fucked. Yep, let's just chill that out. Okay, I should be clear. Let me know if I'm not. But yeah, the last couple streams we did, I had an AC just blaring in the background because I was dying. I moved into an upstairs apartment, or not apartment, townhouse, and I have just been melting during the heat of the summer. But like the last couple days, it's just been like, oh, well, summer's over, it's winter time now. I had to bike through the rain, it was very disappointing. But, you know, not having it be intensely hot is very nice. Hey there, K-Plays. Sorry, is that username, are you Crystal in my Discord, or? Yeah, I think I recognize that name. How are you doing? Yeah, so, welcome everyone, to another development livestream. I'll just give a quick kind of recap for people who haven't been here before. This is my Voxel game Zephyr. I've been working, well, it's more of an engine, but it is an engine I'm making that I want to make a game in. I built it in C++ and Vulkan pretty much from scratch. I have been working for the past 6 years to create like a modding API for it. The idea is that all game content should be entirely sandboxed and executed in a scripting language, so that mods and game content can be provided by servers without having to like verify any code or whatever. And anyone can build using the exact same tools that I'm using to make the game that I want to sell. I basically just want to make like a really, really nice modding platform in addition to making a game that I care about a lot. And so recently what I've been working on is a structure generation system. If I just quickly create some flatland here to demonstrate, which will take a couple seconds. I've been working on creating a dynamic structure system that's similar to Minecraft's structure blocks, but more powerful. I can demonstrate that if I just go like structure, generate, Zeus, path, X. Yeah, here we go. So here's an example structure generation. It started with this node here, and the actual placement of objects is similar to Minecraft's jigsaw blocks, where a structure has multiple attachment points, and then each of those attachment points can roll another structure to go off of it. So like, for example, this structure generated this structure, generated this structure, so on and so forth. But the additions that I've made to make it more configurable and customizable is that any structure can either initialize or depend on counters. So the idea is that structures are randomly rolled to attach to previous structures, but they have to satisfy counter conditions. So for example, if we wanted to make it so that there couldn't be multiple straight paths in a row, which would probably be a good thing because it's kind of a bit structured looking. If I turn off the structure preview, it's like, that just kind of looks like a straight line. We could easily add a counter to roads that says we could just add a counter to the roads that says like straight path distance 1, and then each subsequent straight road could only be placed if straight path distance is set to 0, and then we decrement the distance by 1 every time another structure is placed. This is actually such a common use case that I might add an auto-decrementing property to counters, where like they automatically count down every structure that's placed, because otherwise you have to encode that logic into each structure, which can be a little bit annoying. But just the raw structure system, or I mean, yeah, just the raw counter system works for that, even if it's a little bit unergonomic. Resolute Pixel says, can the jigsaws be in the vertical axis as well? Not yet. That is something I want to do. I've been thinking about how I want to do that though, because so like for example, Minecraft basically has an up and a down attachment. Here, let me generate, or let me load in a structure here. Structure load Zeus path X. So this is what the jigsaw blocks look like. They're called fixtures in my system. And the pink square indicates what direction they want to attach to. I don't have a vertical mode yet, but if I did, you would be able to place one pointing up and place one pointing down, and then in Minecraft at least you can decide whether the axis is rollable or not, which is basically just where like the horizontal rotation can be randomized, or it will become the same orientation as the structure that placed it. And I'll probably do something similar, but I'm holding off on implementing that until I decide how I really want to do it. Like, at worst, you can technically still create a horizontal structure that gets placed vertically. But, yeah, I'm not too particular yet. I don't know why I'm getting so much frame rate lag right now. My computer's been performing somewhat poorly recently. I should probably look into that, but yeah. Have you explained why you are creating your own game engine as opposed to using another? Not in the stream. So basically, the reason that I'm creating my own game engine is twofold. The first is that I really, really like creating systems and developing things from the ground up. I've always had a compulsion to create things from scratch as opposed to using pre-built solutions, which is not super helpful if you're just trying to get stuff done, but it is really helpful if you want to have a deep knowledge of everything that's going on, which can be helpful for very technical projects. And the other is that I don't think existing game engines would give me the flexibility I need to basically integrate an existing scripting engine that can do all of the things I want, and then also have high performance for dynamically generated voxel terrain. Traditional game engines work a lot better if there's kind of structure and they work best if everything's not procedural, at the very least. Oftentimes they can kind of get really weird when it comes to dynamically generating meshes and models at runtime. So yeah, I figured that making my own engine would be a good idea. I made that decision when I was like 17, and I can't say that I've never thought, hey, maybe this was a horrible idea, but I'm far enough in now that it doesn't make sense to quit. Yeah, that said, I do really like the experience of knowing everything that's in the system. Like, every line of code pretty much, except for, like, I think Vulkan Bootstrap, which is a minimal binding that just gives me some default Vulkan functionality without having to write the boilerplate, is pretty much handwritten. Also V8, which is the JavaScript engine that I use to run the scripting. But yeah, for the most part, like, all game logic, all systems are pretty much built by me, and I really enjoy that experience. I definitely could have saved some time, probably, if I was using some pre-built logic, although I'd be worried about having to compromise my vision on some aspects to actually make that doable. But, yeah. So, something that I haven't really handled well so far is structures being kind of placed into the terrain on the ground. So, like, for example, if I go structure generate Zeus path X, it kind of just floats, right? I gave a very simple example where I placed it entirely on flat terrain, but no, it does not conform to the ground at all, which is quite limiting. And that's something that I would like to fix. So we're gonna actually look into doing that today. Basically, so the way that Minecraft does this, which I think is a good starting example, because the system is technically a little bit, like, it's similar on a technical sense, just with, like, extra stuff to Minecraft's structure system, is that they have two modes of placement for structures, one which is rigid and the other one which is, like, conforming to the surface elevation. I haven't looked into it deep enough to know how they select how deep into the ground the block should be placed. Like, it might be that the bottom blocks of the structure are just placed exactly at ground level, and then everything else is placed higher. But I think, personally, I would like to be able to specify the ground depth. So, like, say that you wanted to have multiple blocks of topsoil that replace something. Like, say you have a structure. Here, let me give origin. Say that I want to have a structure that is like a tree. So we've got, like, this tree here. And then we want to be able to, like, hard place some grass. Let's say we want the blue grass, but we also really want there to be a piece of stone directly under it, right? I go structure, set bounds. So say this is our structure, and we want it to conform to the ground. If we just made it so that the bottom block was on the ground, then what would happen is that, let me just copy this, and then paste it. What happens is then we'd have our blue block always directly above the terrain, because the stone block is actually placing on the ground, right? So what I want to do is be able to say, oh, okay, this structure should be placed into the ground 2 blocks deep, right? So then it's placed like this. Yeah, where the actual block that we're placing here is underground. Agreed, it's a great use case for a custom engine, especially in modding traditional commercial game engines that are slacking. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of modding tools that allow people to reverse engineer games made in popular engines, but there's nothing that really provides a stable integration for mods, at least as far as I'm aware. Like, I wanted to basically architect the entire system so that every piece of, like, game content has the same amount of legitimacy. I want my official games that I make in the engine to be made using the modding API, and I want anyone else's content to be made using the modding API. And I don't want to give this distinction between code that is actually built for me and code that is built for others. Obviously there is, like, or I guess built by me or built by others. Obviously there are engine level things, like the actual placement of all of these blocks is done using multi-threaded C++, but the noise modules that define how they're placed are specified using JavaScript. So like I'm basically offloading the minimum amount of things that I need to into the engine level, and then leaving everything else to be either specified or actually computed in JavaScript. I need to swap out my earbuds. Trees with stone foundations are rare. Hey, it's an example. It doesn't need to be scientifically accurate. But yeah, no, I probably could have come up with a slightly better one. I assume the base games aren't going to be written in TypeScript and Sandbox. Don't you anticipate performance issues for substantial mods? So I do want to actually sandbox and write in TypeScript all of the base game content. I know. I was just messing around as well. I do want to make all of the game content in TypeScript, even the first-party games. And for performance, there's a couple things I can do to improve that. For one, I can provide better APIs for bulk block manipulation. Right now, blocks are placed just entirely sequentially with separate JavaScript commands. So if I, like, do this, and then I go, like, set stone, we will see a little bit of a jump. It's not super long, but, like, there's definitely a performance impact to placing that many blocks using the scripting API, and I could write better APIs to get around that. But also, this isn't technically limited to only JavaScript. I have, like, because I'm using V8, which is the scripting engine that Chrome uses, it also supports WebAssembly, which means that native code, like Rust and stuff, could actually be compiled into WASM and then run using the engine, just like JavaScript, which would still give the benefits of it being sandbox, but it would let you get much closer to native speeds. And that's something that I haven't really done much into yet, but is something that, like, technically I can do. It's something that the engine affords, and I definitely want to get that done at least, like, relatively early on in the process. But then as far as, like, just other stuff goes, a lot of what I want to make, there's, like, automation stuff, there's, like, creatures, animations, terrain, structures, etc. A lot of these systems are quite general, and I will be building kind of engine-level harnesses for them to be able to execute efficiently in C++. But then also, like, a lot of it can be really optimized by the JIT compiler. Like, the JavaScript engine that, like, V8 is super, super fast. Like, it's insanely fast. For a lot of computational tasks, it can be, like, 70% the speed of native code, which is pretty good, and, yeah. Oh, interesting, WASM sounds like something you'd need for compute-heavy systems like physics and animation. Yeah, I definitely am trying to avoid having physics and animation type things in scripting. I am providing engine-level functionality for those. And then similarly, like MapGen is largely engine run, but script defined. And I'll continue to offload certain mechanics to C++ if necessary. But I don't want to have any game-specific mechanics in there. If I'm going to put something in C++ to make it faster, then I want to make it some sort of general API that others can use. And if I can't figure out how to do that, then I'll probably write it in Rust or something and then compile it to WebAssembly. Did I choose V8 as the scripting engine because of its performance and flexibility compared to other languages? Yeah, more or less. So basically, I started with Lua, actually. I was using Sol 2 or Sol 3 or something, which is the like one of the best C++ wrappers around the raw Lua runtime. And I was sitting around, like I was doing Lua stuff for a while, and I was just really frustrated with the direction the language is taking. Like, Lua's ecosystem is heavily split right now because the only fast interpreter for it is LuaJIT, which is basically stock development and is not maintaining future versions of the language, while Lua itself is adding syntax and features and things that are just not replicated in LuaJIT. Which means that either I had to keep myself shackled to like an atrophying dead version of a compiler just because it's fast, or I had to swap over to something significantly slower to get somewhat minor Lua features, but still it felt wrong to not have them because that's going to confuse anyone coming into the project and trying to do something and searching up like, oh, Lua, integers, and then they try to use an integer and then find out LuaJIT doesn't support them, and are just like, what's going on? So I made the choice to swap to V8 a little while after that. It was also definitely influenced by the fact that V8 can do WebAssembly, which meant that people can mod in any language. Like, you could even bake the non-JIT Lua interpreter into a WASM mod, and then run mod stuff in Lua, in WebAssembly, in JavaScript, in C++. You know, like a 4-step process, but it would still be quite fast from what I understand. But yeah, I wanted to give people flexibility, and I wanted the raw performance to be a lot faster, and I wanted the compiler/interpreter to be maintained. And V8 is built by Google and is basically necessary for all the bullshit they're doing, so I had a feeling it wasn't going to go away anytime soon. Flair says, I love your ideas and principles, best wishes, thank you. But does it run Doom? I'm pretty sure there are WebAssembly versions of Doom, but you know. Technically, if people were really horrible, they could probably compile Doom into WebAssembly, build that into the engine, like into a mod, and then use blocks or entities to display the visuals. I don't think it would run at full speed, but they could try. May I ask what API/library you're using to create the window you're rendering to? I was using GLFW for a while, but now I've swapped to SDL. And I did that mainly so that I could have proper controller interactions. SDL has windowing and then also a keyboard and gamepad stuff. And GLFW is basically just windowing and raw keyboard signals. And I figured I didn't really want to write all of the like controller compatibility stuff by hand, so I swapped over to SDL. But really, like, making the window is only a small part of the equation. Once you make the window, you actually have to render to it with an API, and I'm using Vulkan for that. Use the voxels in the game engine to display the Doom pixels. Oh god. Imagine the voxel manipulations for that. I mean, hey, maybe if I get those bulk operations, it'll be kind of fast. I don't know. Yeah, so I'm interested in making this stuff conform to the terrain, and I don't think that would actually be all that hard. Will any of the physics be implemented in Vulkan? That's a good question. I assume you're talking about, like, compute stuff on the GPU. I haven't really considered that. I mean, it's possible. I've just not really, I've not really thought about using Vulkan for things other than rendering so far. But, like, I might do Vulkan stuff for, like, parallelizing animation and physics. That's not my area of expertise. I'm very self-taught, and most of that teaching was just for graphics. But yeah, I might do it. That would be pretty cool. Leaflow says, "Hi, I'm interested in the techniques you use for optimizing chunk meshing and rendering. Nice project." Oh, thank you. For chunk meshing, I linearly scan through the blocks in any given chunk, but then I also apply greedy meshing to it. I basically run the mesher in runs in one axis and then the next axis, and collect as many of the same type of block together as I can. And then the actual chunks are 32 by 32 by 32. If I do like a big manipulation here, you'll be able to see that. If I just go like extend 10 set air. Actually, let me look at what I'm gonna look at. There is a bug right now where some chunks are gonna get left behind, but you'll see the general process here. Yeah. So it kind of goes in chunks. Yeah, and then currently I'm actually uploading all of the chunks on the main thread, which is unfortunate, but this engine was built in OpenGL for a long time, and I only recently swapped to Vulkan, so I'm still constrained by some of the design decisions that I made because of OGL. But I plan on fully parallelizing the mesh uploads in the future. I'm already generating the meshes in different threads, and I could just cut out the middleman of sending them to the client and then having the main thread, and then having the main thread upload them if I just use Vulkan APIs properly. So that's definitely something I want to look into. Marsman says, "I'm kind of in a different boat with the project I'm working on. I'm starting my project in GLFW, but I'll eventually need to do something for tablet pen pressure input." I think SDL might have that. Let's see, SDL, they have finger-touching events. Do they have stylus? Let's see. SDL, tablet stylus pressure. I don't think they have stylus pressure. Maybe they do, but... yeah, unclear. Oh, wait, no, yes. Maybe. Okay. There is an API in SDL to get pressure, but people on the internet are saying that your mileage may vary for if it actually works based on operating system APIs. In my Voxel engine, I've decided against greedy meshing to support vertex lighting. What's your plan there? So I have a lighting system. I don't think it's actually working right now, but I can pull up some old footage of it real quick. But it does work via vertex lighting, and but like, I'm only going to be doing smooth lighting, is the main thing. Like, I'm not going to be having per voxel light values, so I'm thinking that I can kind of encode the lighting into the runs as well. So like, here's an example of the lighting system. I just have a small video. It is colored lighting, which I'm quite happy with. This isn't actually the most impressive example. Let me pull up... Where is the actual impressive footage? I want to show the nice footage. Yeah, okay. So here's some examples of the lighting system. I did some funky light math to make the lights actually octagonal instead of just diamond shaped, to make them feel a little bit more like actual light sources. And they are stored in node data, and they will be uploaded with the vertex data as well. Like, the light data will be attached to vertices. But since, so I haven't tested this, to be clear. But if you consider light, it's like a node-based system, and every block that it travels on like the same kind of span will usually be going down by either 1 or 0.5, depending on what direction the octagonal lighting is relative to it. So I think a lot of runs could be encoded that way, as long as I basically store the minimum and maximum light value, as well as the directionality of it. Because as long as the light's going in the same direction, and it is like continuing to linearly decrease along that direction, then I can still make one quad that encodes that entire light information, I think. That's the idea, but yeah. I can actually, I can give an example of something that doesn't do that properly. If I open up Minetest, which is another open source voxel project thing that is, it's pretty interesting. This is actually a bunch of content for a mod I made for it a long time ago, for like a game jam, but I need creative mode. I do have creative mode. How do I fly? Is flight not a part of the built-in creative mode? Alright, whatever, that's fine. I don't need it. Let me just pull up wireframe mode. Somehow. How the hell do I do wireframe mode? It's one of the function keys, I know that. And none of them worked. Hold on. Wow. Okay, what? I thought it was F5. I thought if you just pressed F5 a bunch, it would do it. Maybe F6? No. Hold on, let me check the settings for a second. Let's see. Settings. Advanced settings. Wireframe. Wire. Frame. Mind test enable wireframe. I'm just googling this now. Debug. Wireframe. Only if the debug privilege. Oh, that's why I can't fly. Hold on. Grant single player all. Oh, shit. Grant single player all. Okay, now... wireframe. Okay, perfect. Okay, so... oh, that's weird vertex stuff. So you can see... wait, none of these are greedy meshed at all? Mine test definitely used to have greedy meshing. Did I, like, turn off a setting for it? Maybe it's been disabled. That's weird. Really? Oh, that's very strange. Yeah, they absolutely had greedy meshing at some point. But it looks like they don't have that anymore, which is a huge performance hit. Alright, whatever. Can't explain it using that. But basically, Mind Test, when it used to have greedy meshing, would also organize its mesh faces into spans, but then whenever the light value would change between blocks, it would kind of give up, which led to a lot of unoptimized terrain, or a bunch of unoptimized mesh planes. But I'm pretty sure as long as I keep, like, all of the spans limited to having the light going the same direction, with, like, regular linear decay, then it should still be able to be greedy meshed and appear properly. But again, I haven't tested that, so don't take my word for it. Okay, you also say... sorry, I missed this message. Okay, nice, you're currently not compressing your vertex data. I'm not compressing it as well as I could. I'm not compressing it as well as I could. Nothing is, like, vertex pulled, for example. That's a technique I learned about very recently, and I'm really excited to mess with it, because vertex pulling just seems really interesting. I am compressing the data in the vertex layout a little bit, like I am, like, compressing normals and texture coordinates and stuff. But no, I'm not doing any advanced compression, but I do have plans to do so. The larger your greedy mesh, the less resolution your lighting has, and since greedy meshes are irregular, that can cause some artifacts, right? Hypothetically, yes. I mean, a greedy mesh is just, like a single quad that has parameters to repeat a texture, basically, right? But I wouldn't be greedy meshing over multiple, like, different directions of light. Like, if you imagine in a node-based lighting system, let's just take Minecraft, for example. Minecraft is a very easy option to demonstrate with, and I can open it up, and I know it'll actually work, unlike Mind Test. And just pull up Better Than Adventure real quick, because it loads fast and I like it. And I will show you a light, and then I'll explain what I'm thinking. Let's create a new world, creative, world type, flat. Okay, time set, night. Let's get a torch. Okay, so you can see the lights going in 8 directions, right? It's either directly north-south, or south-north, or east-west, or west-east, or it's diagonal in one of the 4 directions. My thought is that you would only be able to greedy mesh things where the light's going in the same direction, like this whole quad here, or this single strip here, or this single strip here. And as long as all the light values in that span of, like in that quad, are following the exact same direction, and you encode the maximum and minimum values of the light, then it shouldn't have any sort of artifacting. Minecraft does use Manhattan distance, yeah, that's how it has this distinctive diamond shape. And then the system that I'm using in my own, which is allowing it to... Oh, I got to someone else's page. The system I am using on mine to allow it to have this more circular shape is basically also node propagation, stuff like that, but I use... I kind of store the direction of last travel and then bias certain light values to being able to extend further based on that to create this diamond shape. Which means I'd have 16 directions instead of 8 to possibly greedy mesh, but it still means that a lot of this terrain could still be greedy mesh despite having light values in it. Sorry, this is supposed to be about structures, right? I mean, yeah, but most of the time the streams just devolve into talking about stuff anyways, so it's not a huge deal. Floodfill algorithm creating an octahedron. Sure, I guess if your greedy meshing adapts to lighting, you can make it work. Yeah. Wouldn't that not work for multiple light sources? You're correct that it wouldn't work, like it wouldn't be able to greedy mesh evenly across the entire span, but greedy meshing is an opportunistic algorithm anyways, like, it's not like it always finds conditions where it can run. It's more about greedy meshing as many of the quads as I possibly can, and if when multiple lights are overlapping it can't create large spans, that's not a huge deal. Like, something that's deceptive about greedy meshing is how little it needs to be actually optimizing to make a huge difference. Like, when I look at this terrain and I see all of these strips side by side, I think, man, it could be running so much better and my algorithm's kinda shit. But if you think about it, even if every block was only meshing 2 blocks into one quad, then that means you're halving the number of vertices you're actually computing. Like, even if greedy meshing is only working a trivial amount, say that it's like encoding in any given light source maybe like 5 blocks as one instead of like 30 or whatever it's doing over here. That's still 20% of the quads that would be emitted if I didn't try to do any optimization at all, right? An average of Manhattan and max coordinate distance would also give an octahedron shape too, wouldn't it? Manhattan and max coordinate's like the square one, right? Where it's like the maximum of the two distances. The average of the two... That probably makes sense, yeah. But the thing about, like, voxel node propagation algorithms is you kind of need them to be very stateless. So, like, none of the light blocks in Minecraft or in my system are aware of what their source is. They're only aware of their relationship in regards to the direct nodes adjacent to them. It kind of needs to be a flood flow algorithm, or a flood fill, I guess. And I think it would be pretty hard to encode max coordinate distance. I mean, I guess you could encode it as, like, a maximum distance on each axis, as well as the node propagation distance. Although, having maximum coordinate distance, it would be hard to do that around corners. I don't know how you'd fix going around corners with that. Because, like, the light algorithm should still probably, like, not go through walls, right? But no, that does make sense. I think I might be basically mimicking something like that in my system. I didn't really have any, like, specific scientific algorithm backing for it, but it turned out to be pretty coordinated. Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to briefly tangent and write a little bit of code. It's only been an hour, or actually, I guess it's more, yeah, 40 minutes, and I haven't written a single line of code. Oops. But yeah, so let's see real quick. So the generator here is what's actually responsible for placing structures. And I'm going to add a new property to the structure type, which is going to be, let's go placement, and it's either going to have a type which is rigid, or a type which is, terrain matching, and then a depth number. This is basically a, in TypeScript these are considered union types. So basically you either have the type equal to this string and no additional properties, or you have the type equal to terrain matching and it knows that there should be a specific depth. It allows you to do very nice type inference. It's a lot nicer than if you just did type is equal to, like, rigid or terrain matching and then depth might be a number, because basically you know if you match against this string, it must have depth, and if you match against this string, then it can't have depth. Yeah, average of Manhattan distance. In a previous stream, you said you were running late on timing. Is your engine due to someone? Okay, so that's actually a great tangent about the structure thing. Basically, so I was doing a self-directed study for school, which is basically just a thing that's offered by my university, which allows me to work on something independent of a school curriculum with a professor, and basically outline just a series of goals I want to accomplish. The professor okays it, and then I'm responsible to actually do that. And so that's what I ended up doing for a couple months this semester. I set a goal to build the structure system that I've been demonstrating earlier in the stream, and I started with nothing, and then right in the middle of working on it, I got COVID and then also moved homes and basically lost like a month and a half of time. And then the last couple streams were me cramming to get it finished on time. The final bit of work on it, including the debug stuff that I showed, I'll show it again, structure generate Zeus path X. All of this like debug information, as well as like collision detection and dynamic retries of structures, which is why there's like multiple red boxes here. That was all done while I was taking a little trip to visit my family. But I ended up getting it done on time and spent probably 12 hours over 2 days after already working for 10-hour days just trying to get a final presentation video going for the project, which I submitted 1 day after the due date, but thankfully my prof said that wasn't a problem. So yeah, I was super time pressured, but now it's all done, so I can like chill out a little bit, which is nice. So yeah, there was stuff that was due, and now I can just calm down a bit. Dang, that's wild. No, really, like, so it wouldn't have been hard if I had just not had life kick me in the pants. Like, if I had just had a nice, calm semester where I could spend, like, a couple hours a week on it, it would have been just fine. But losing a month and a half of productivity out of, like, a 3.5-month semester, and then still having to hit the initial goals that I set up for was not fun. And, like, admittedly, a lot of that month and a half that I stopped working on it was a bit of complacency. Like, COVID lasted maybe 3 weeks. I could have gone into it after that, but I was moving home and I was like, oh, I'm already so busy, I'll figure it out later. And so that led to a lot of crunch time at the end, but I'm glad it got done, and I'm glad I got credit for doing stuff with this engine, because that's a lot more fun than trying to find some random comp sci course which I don't actually care about to finish. Yeah. Geez, I'm getting caught up. I'm behind on text. I'm behind on the chat. Ah! Okay, Flare says, like she said, the light propagation needs to be stateless because otherwise if any Voxel is mutated, you'd have to find all the surrounding lights to recompute, which doesn't scale well. Yeah, that's basically the main reason. Having the light propagation algorithm be stateless means that we don't have to seek out and find any given light sources and then recompute the light for all of them. We can just recompute the affected area based on the neighbors, which is a lot more efficient in the long run. Quellis Dev says, wait, you're writing an engine from scratch. Yeah, and I have been for 6 years, which is temporarily horrifying. I didn't think that I would be doing this for so long when I started when I was like 17, but here I am. Hi. Yes, using C++ and Vulkan and the JavaScript V8 engine for scripting. Yep. Very sorry for not following the structure subject. I accumulated questions from the previous watch streams where I did not dare speak. Oh, no, that's totally fine. Like I said, like, so the streams for me are as much about getting stuff done as they are about chatting with people. I really like just talking about the projects I'm working on. And also, like, you know, the more I talk about it in public, the more people are aware of the project. And so it's kind of a win-win in a lot of ways. I don't come into these things expecting to be able to be super productive. I mostly just get a couple lines of code in here and there when the chat's going a bit slower, which recently has been a lot harder because more people have been showing up to streams, which is actually really nice. But, you know, I do need to find some more time outside of streaming to actually get some stuff done, if you know what I mean. But yeah, no problem at all about the questions. I mean, that is a large part of why I'm here. Did I make the textures? Yeah, I did. Some of these are quite old and basically revised from a mind test mod that I was working on a long time ago. and then some of them are a bit newer. Not all of them are up to my standards for sure. I think there's a lot of, like, I could be restricting my palette a bit more. I could be making better use of contrast. The gray walls there just look so samey. But yeah, I do plan on, like, using all of this art, or at least some of it, and then making the rest of the art for the final game. How many years ago was I 17? I'm currently 22, so 5? Wait, that doesn't add up. I've been working on this for 6 years. Like, I am 22. I guess it's late. I guess it's more 5.5 years, actually. Yeah, because I started, like, a week before I turned 17, and my birthday is in a couple months here, so yeah, about 5.5 years. Oh, thank you for the Prime sub, Flare. Ah, shit. Yeah, I'll be 23 this year. Yeah, so 5.5 years of working on this project. Right, so we have this data type for the structures, structure placement, rigid or terrain matching. And I'm gonna quickly just go mindlessly populate all of the paths that already exist with the terrain matching property. So let's go path X. This is awesome. How are you storing voxel data / worlds on disk? That's the funny part. I'm not. Okay, I haven't done any world saving yet. Or just any file manipulation at all, other than just basically, like, structure files here, which are just raw, uncompressed JSON, which is not how I want to do things forever. But my plan for storing stuff on disk is I want to store the deltas for any given chunk. It'll be a really primitive system. It'll basically just, when chunks are generated, initialize a Boolean vector to 0, and then anytime you modify a block, it'll swap that over to 1, and then when the chunks are saved to the disk, it's only going to save the ones that are changed from the default values. And then whenever you return to a previous area that you've already been in, it's going to regenerate the chunk as though it's brand new, but then apply all of the changes that are in the, like, file system to it, to basically just repopulate the chunk with what you've changed without having to save every single chunk that you run through, because Minecraft has this scalability problem where if you run for like 1,000,000 miles in one direction and then come back, even if you basically did nothing throughout that space, now your file is going to be like 10 gigabytes, which is unfortunate. And I want to have much higher world render distance than Minecraft. This doesn't even begin to cover it. So it would be pretty bad if I was just saving all of that to disk all the time. So when are you applying at Hypixel Studios? Well, so funny thing about them is that I'm pretty sure they were working on Hytale before me, but they didn't publicly release the fact that they were working on Hytale until a couple years after I started working on my project. And I remember I was really afraid of them at the time. Like, I was really just worried about the fact that they were going to release their game. And, you know, while they have a different direction than me, they're making a modding API, and they've got a lot of, like, mass market attention because Hypixel's huge. And I was really scared that they were gonna basically just take away the market that I'm aiming for. But then I realized, like, their game is in such development hell. I don't think they've made a blog post about it in, like, months. So I'm not too worried about them anymore. But yeah, no, I'm not particularly interested in working on their project. I think I've got enough space in my brain for one life-consuming massive voxel project. I don't need another one. What would happen if you go somewhere, the game gets a content update, and the terrain gen changes, and you go back? Won't it have a chance of being different from when you were last there? Yes, and that is why I'm actually very particularly designing all of the terrain data to be serializable. So, like, the map gen itself is run using C++, and JavaScript basically sends the parameters. So stuff like the structures, the noise nodes, the distribution of various blocks and stuff. And I plan on basically having all of that be serialized into the file when you actually generate any chunks. It'll have some sort of version tag that's automatically incremented whenever the mapgen properties change, and each chunk will be saved with whatever version tag they were initially generated at. And then whenever the, whenever the mapgen properties change, it'll continue using the old serialized versions for the existing chunks. And then if there ends up being no more chunks that already have that version, then it's going to just discard that old version from the file system. And I might also make it so that, like, if the map gen props change and it's like a couple versions out of date, it might just decide to generate the entire chunk with that system, save the whole thing as a modified delta, and then just discard the old serialized information. But that's really just a performance optimization. I haven't really decided where I'm going to go with that yet. But yeah, I'm going to store old versions of the map gen properties so it can continue to regenerate old terrain. They ported from Java to C++ and have redone a lot of the story. Yeah, I mean, so another thing about Hypixel is they seem a lot, or Hytale I guess, is they seem a lot more focused on this like adventure RPG type thing they're doing. And like, that's pretty cool. I'll definitely take a look at their game when they release it, but it's not like what I'm particularly focused on here. I have this idea for a game that focuses a lot on like adventure and shapeshifting. I want to kind of do a Valheim-esque world where like every zone is gated behind defeating some creature, but then in addition, every zone that you go into gives you 2 new creatures that you can shapeshift into, and you're basically swapping between forms throughout the entire game. And I think that that's going to be pretty interesting and hopefully unique enough that people are still interested in this project, even if Hytale does eventually come out. Are the voxels stored in an organizing data structure, like an octree or something? Currently, they are stored in chunks in flat arrays if the chunks are nearby. And then the distant chunks are compressed using run index encoding into basically just like byte array. And then they're decompressed on the fly when they need to be accessed or if you get near them. But I am probably going to use an octree or something for the actual hierarchy of chunks, because something I care about a lot is getting level of detail into the engine, which means that I need some way of representing multiple blocks of chunks easily as a single data structure and like rendering component. And octrees are very well suited to that because, you know, they have this built-in hierarchy that goes up and then gets more sparse as you like increase or decrease the depth. Usually octrees don't have great characteristics for mutable voxel worlds, linear array with chunk-specific palettes. Yeah, so the actual chunks are stored like that. Although I'm not using palettes just yet, I'm probably going to do that eventually. I think I'll likely create, I'll probably store the actual blocks as shorts with a palette, because I believe, yeah, I've got 32,768 blocks per chunk, because it's 32 cubed, which means that a short can entirely encompass all of the blocks that could possibly be in a chunk. And then I'll probably store palettes and then optimize them at world save time. So like if it decides, or like at world save, if we find out that some block is just never used, then I'll discard it from the map, so I don't have to compute that at runtime. Xander says, oh my god, Xander. Hi, Xander. I'm assuming you're the Xander I know. If I'm wrong, then apologies for, being surprised. But, yeah, okay, hi. Very cool idea for storing info on disk. How are you storing chunks in memory? Yeah, linear arrays of blocks in the chunks, and then the chunks themselves are currently just stored in a hash map, which is super inefficient, but I want to use an octree when I get there. Usually octree, okay, I read that one. Voxels or deltas, hold on, I'm just quickly catching up. See, because I'm simulcasting on YouTube and Twitch, I have 2 chats on my screen, which is annoying. Like, I don't have anything to easily squish them into one list. Even if an octree isn't used, a Z-order linear array would be good for location near access, wouldn't it? Z-order, I'm assuming you mean, like, depth order, because Z is the vertical axis in most systems. In games, at least, or at least in this game, I'm using Y as the vertical axis. I could be completely wrong, you could mean side to side for some reason. But yeah, no, I am doing Y order, like vertical order spans. I do want to preserve memory locality as much as I can, but yeah. Remember to add optimizations early on or you'll end up with something like Minecraft's horrible performance. Don't worry about that. I'm more concerned about preventing myself from micro-optimizing everything immediately than I am about just like letting code be bad. I constantly optimize incessantly, and the only reason that these things aren't currently optimized is because I've very intentionally restricted myself from doing that right now because I need to focus on adding new features. Oh, different Xander. Okay, that is surprising. I thought for sure. I have a work colleague named Xander, and he was saying he was going to show up for one of my streams, and I was like, oh god, oh god. And I thought for sure that it wouldn't have been a coincidence. Cool. Yeah, but no, I'm definitely going to optimize stuff, like, a lot. That's definitely something I want to do. I am trying so hard to restrain myself from doing vertex pulling right now because I don't want to ditch the structure system like 10 steps from it being finished. But that's definitely going to be my next thing. I'm so excited. You could switch between flat array and palettes based on mutation frequency, just a space-time trade-off after all. Would it actually be a trade-off to use palettes? Like, the only risk of palettes is if, like, I'm not garbage collecting from the palette list and the chunk is rapidly swapping between blocks and then eventually it runs out of space and I have to flush any unused blocks, but like even then, there's probably only a couple hundred microseconds to compute. Like I'm pretty sure I could palette everything without too much of a performance hang-up. Z-order in the sense of the shape of an octree traversal. Okay, so you're talking about kind of organizing it in increasing scale cuboids, which are... Okay, yeah, I could see that. Huh. Yeah, that probably would be a good idea. I've only been focusing on simple X, Z, Y organization because it's very quick to encode and decode those indices, like from a vector. You can very easily grab the index and vice versa. I might try a different encoding order, though. That could be pretty interesting. What made you choose C++ over something like Java and LWJGL? Basically, I initially... Okay, so this is actually, like, this goes back to the history of my, like, learning to code. My first like video game that I had ever gotten really passionate about was Minecraft, and something I got really obsessed with early on in my life was the idea of modding it. And so I spent a long time basically trying to learn Java specifically to mod Minecraft when I was a kid. I think I was about like 12 at the time. But I ended up being either too stupid or too not focused to actually learn it at that point, and I kind of dropped it. I think I was probably 10 when I dropped it. And then around when I was 12, I think, no, it was in grade 9, so I would have been 14. My sister's 14 right now, or 13, and she's in grade 8. Yeah, so around when I was 14, I took a digital media class in my school, and it was supposed to just be about like Microsoft Office and stuff, but the prof was really interested in video games, and like rushed through all of the MS Office things and threw Game Maker in our faces, which is like a very beginner-friendly game engine that's mostly focused on 2D type stuff. And it has a block-based scripting style, but it also has code. And I eventually just dropped down into the code level, and that was my first programming language ever. And it was in its own proprietary game engine. It was in its own proprietary language, GML. But yeah, so I hopped through working with GML for a while. Then eventually I learned web dev with JavaScript and stuff. And then eventually I had to go, like, I think at that time I did a tiny bit of stuff with Java on making a Java engine, because my ambitions had gone from making a mod to just making a whole ass game, because I have chronic scope creep built into my bones. And so I went to try and make a game, and I think I was using libgl? No. Maybe. libgdx in Java for a little bit. But then the performance was really not what I wanted to see, so I ended up swapping to C++, and honestly, I just love the manual memory management and referencing and stuff. It's so much nicer. Like, you just get so much control in C++, which you don't get in Java. And sure, that makes it really easy to fuck everything up, but it also makes it really easy to run stuff really quickly if you know what you're doing. The palette lookup adds a small cost on mutation, and there's a chance the palette would have to grow, and then you need more bits per voxel. So I was thinking that for simplicity, I'd probably just use a short for the palette indices, because my chunks are 32x, which means that I'd only have up to 32k variations, even if every block in the palette was different. Yeah, I guess it does add a little bit of lookup cost, but likely because the chunks are so small, that would be fairly minimal, and I could probably also encode it in a slightly more optimal way. I'm not entirely sure how I'd do that. I could do like, if I made the numbers always increasing in the palette, or at least, well, I guess I can't do that if I'm mutating the palette live. I'm not sure, you're right, it would be a little bit of an increased cost to do the palette stuff. I'm not sure. Oh, thank you for the link to Z-order curve. I will click that. It's wait, this opened in OBS, and I know that because when I resize it, it doesn't resize the browser frame, because OBS sucks. That's so weird, I didn't know that would work. Let me copy the link. It's uncanny how alike our origin stories are. Did you have a similar Minecraft journey to programmer pipeline? I've heard it's pretty common for my generation. Oh, I see, it's Z-order curve because it's like... Oh, wow, okay, computer lag, what the fuck? Oh, that's very cool, yeah. Yeah, definitely I might do something like this. Oh, and it looks like it's relatively easy to encode? Yeah, okay. I'll definitely look into that later, that seems great. Flo says, I'm coming from a Java background too. I like the memory management in C++, but I hate the circular dependency or things like interfaces not being the same as I know them. Oh god, C++'s ergonomics, particularly with interfaces and stuff, is awful. There's like so many rough edges to this language, and like some of them can be a little bit improved by just relying on stuff like smart pointers instead of raw pointers, but then there's other things that are just very built into the language that just really fucking suck. Like, I do not blame anyone for hating the ergonomics of C++, but for me, I'm willing to put up with the bullshit because I really like the performance and the actual structure of how stuff works. There's something else I was gonna say. Oh god, I've lost my train of thought. No! First time this stream. I've had a good track record up till now. Hold on, I'm just trying to think. Thinking. Oh yeah! So one of the stories I always like to tell in streams when people ask about how I got here is I like to joke about how, oh, I've never ended up making a Java mod for Minecraft after all this time. But I technically broke that recently. I wrote my first Minecraft mod for Better Than Adventure, which is this fork of beta 1.7.3 that I really like. And they recently had a kind of controversial update where they changed the food eating mechanics. And me and my friends that play together are both nostalgia whores, so we really wanted the old mechanics, and I was like, you know what? I can do this. And so I made myself a little mod that undoes the new mechanics, and it's literally like 12 lines of code total. But hey, I've technically made a Java Minecraft mod now, so I can scratch that off the bucket list, I guess. But yeah, that felt kind of uncanny. Like, it was super easy to do, right? Because it was such a simple mod to write. But like, I was doing it, and I think it was like around midnight, and I was like, this feels like a dream. Like, I genuinely didn't think I would ever write a mod for Minecraft. I felt like I just progressed past the point in my life where that would make sense. But no, it ended up happening, and it's kind of cool. Mod to reverse a mod, just Minecraft things. Yeah, I don't know. It felt really short-sighted of the devs to not make it a game rule. Like, they added a game rule to change how the eating works, but they changed the stack sizes, and they like quadrupled the amount of food you could hold in your inventory, and there's no way to revert that without a mod. Mine was the only mod that did it. And that's just insane to me. Like, it's... old food mechanics are something that so many people that like the beta 1.7.3 era are nostalgic for. And the fact that they just changed it, and then were just completely unapologetic about it too, like, there's a lot of people complaining about it, and they were just like, too bad, we don't care. I was like, really? That fucking blows. But yeah, you know, problem solved. I fixed it, for myself at least, and then I published it if anyone else is a die-hard person like me for the old food mechanics. What's your OS and desktop environment? It's looking good. It is GNOME. I'm using Endeavour OS with the GNOME pre-install. And then I have a bunch of extensions for stuff. Let me pull up extensions. Mainly I use Burn My Windows for the nice, like, TV animations when stuff moves. I use Clipboard Indicator for the clipboard down there. I use Dash to Panel for the traditional bottom bar. Drop Down Terminal, which is just a version of Quake, which runs in GNOME directly, which is nice. And then just a couple other things, just perfection, just like tweaks some visuals and stuff. Then Rounded Window Corners, because Rounded Window Corners, obviously. Yeah. No, I was on XFCE for pretty much forever, but then I eventually just got really frustrated with the lack of customization and wanted to try something new. And so I tried out GNOME, and I really like it. It's great. Yeah. Oh my god, I actually caught up with the chat. This is like a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. Alright, we're gonna have placement type is equal to terrain matching, and then we're gonna set the depth to 1, because all of these paths are one block, like basically it's just ground and then the path block, so we want it to be one block into the ground to actually match up. I'm just gonna copy that to all of the path block, or the path components here. And format selection. There we go. Placement is set. Now I need to go make the structure code actually read it. Feel free to ask more questions and stuff if you want to. I'm just opportunistically taking advantage of this time to do some actual stuff. Okay, so we're gonna go into the generator, and I'm gonna want to actually grab the placement from the structure. This code is such a fucking mess. I need to refactor a bunch of this. A lot of this code is, I had 48 hours to finish this project and I just need something to work. So please don't judge me too hard. I'm actually gonna commit real quick, I think. Final changes for structure system str or sts. If I recall, Endeavor is based on Arch, which tends to break GNOME extensions whenever GNOME releases a new version. How often does it break? I've had that happen twice since I swapped over about a year ago, and it is mildly annoying. I've been considering basically freezing my GNOME updates. I think you can do that. Like, I'm pretty sure you can tell Arch to not update certain dependencies, although I'm a little bit worried about the, like, stability of that over time. None of the extensions I use are particularly important to me, other than, like, Just Perfection, Dash to Panel, and Rounded Window Corners, of which 2 of the 3 are pretty, like, quickly updated, so, yeah. I don't know, it's a mix. I really, really like Arch for being able to install, like, the most up-to-date versions of system libraries. I used to be on Ubuntu derivatives, and it was hellish to try and get, like, a newer version of Vulkan or of GLFW or whatever I was using at the time. Like, getting new versions of system libraries was awful on Ubuntu, so I do like rolling release, but it is annoying when it breaks stuff with the desktop. It's all trade-offs, I guess, but yeah. Where is the structure? I swear, there is... What is going on? Am I blind? Oh my god, I'm blind. It's one of the properties in the function. Okay, that's fine. I know where things are. I'm gonna go... I'm gonna try and do this really simply, where I'm basically just going to reorganize the placement part to place in columns, and then I'm going to, for each column, scan down to the first block that is not air, and then continue down by whatever the depth specified is, and then place the blocks at that point. So, yeah, the place structure function is what actually places blocks, and it runs through the nodes, and then, let's see, it goes index to pos, which takes in y, which is not actually the minimum axis, which is surprising. I usually try to make Y the minimum axis that I can like scan in columns, but apparently I didn't this time. Wondering out loud if Fedora would be better in this case. Stable releases and new software versions more often than Debian, every 6 months versus every 2 years. I don't know, I mean maybe, but I also really like how everything in Arch is installed using the package manager, and I don't think Fedora does that. And also, like, when I need a new system library, I need it now. I don't need it in 6 months, right? I just want the ability to quickly install it, or have it already be installed. Okay, the fact that I haven't organized these indices in a, like, sane way is kind of annoying. But we can do this a little bit different. How many C++ threads are you planning to have, and what will be the different purposes of them? So currently I have, I think, 8 threads for mapgen, 4 threads for meshing, and just the main render thread. But I want to actually change that entire architecture into not having any specialized threads other than just the main thread and probably like the staging, like the rendering thread. So I want to multi-thread input and rendering. So then like stuff like coordinating the world is distinct from rendering the actual blocks. I'll just pipeline whatever meshes are in, and then I'll do a minimal amount of synchronization to make sure that like mouse input and stuff is handled before the rendering starts for any given frame, so there's not latency. But I want like the logic thread that runs like the main scripting stuff to be distinct from the render thread. And then the rest of the threads I want to basically just allocate based on the number of cores in the system, and then be given tasks in like a task system. Are the main mapgen threads for parallelism? Yes, yeah, they are. Each thread is given a different set of chunks to generate. It's not like they're sharing one chunk job. But yeah, so I'm gonna do mapgen and meshgen and everything else just all on general use threads, which are allocated according to how many cores the system has. And then I also want to do stuff like microtasks and multi-threaded scripting, because technically you can do multi-threaded scripting. It's not particularly nice to do in JavaScript, but I'm gonna try and make it at least possible. So, you know, people can take advantage of the threading environment if they want to. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Minecraft is all entirely single-threaded still, more or less, so it'll at least be an improvement on that. Like, I'm very aware nowadays that, like, all games need to be shifting towards parallelized architectures. I don't want to say, like, oh, there's this many threads for this and this many threads for that, because I think I'd be constraining my design a lot more than I should be. I just want to be creating... I want to be using as much of the system as I can without grinding everything to a halt. And I'll probably have some performance limiter as well in the settings. Like, I'll have something where you can say, oh, keep at least a quarter of my CPU threads free for anything else on my computer, or whatever you set it to. Because I know, like, even when I'm streaming, the mapgen threads use up 100% of pretty much all of my cores, and then the stream janks out when I'm trying to, like, generate terrain. And it's like, it runs perfectly for me, but OBS captures it at like 10 FPS. Like, if I run it right now, you'll probably see the stream frame rate go down. Maybe. I don't know, maybe it's handling it better now, actually. It looks like it's not bad anymore. Weird, okay. More of a thread pool architecture? Yeah, although, I guess it is basically a thread pool architecture, yeah. But I'm going to be prioritizing more long-running tasks and reducing switches as much as I can. So, like, threads will kind of hopefully optimize themselves for a specific operation, and then continue to be inputted stuff until, like, the scheduler basically says, okay, we don't need 8 threads on mapgen right now, because they're not really moving around, you can do something else, type thing. But yeah, I'm very early on into that. I've done a bit of parallelism, but I'm not super confident in it yet, so I've been avoiding working on that for a bit. Zeraface says, NVIDIA or AMD GPU? I have an NVIDIA 3060. It's not top of the line or anything, but, like, honestly, I think it's probably pretty good for me to not have a super great machine, because it means that I'm actually going to be building for, like, average spec. And it works fine for compilation and stuff, so, yeah. X equals 0, x is less than structure.size 0, x plus plus. Let z equals 0, z is less than structure dot size 2, z plus plus. For let y equals 0, y is less than structure dot size 1, y plus plus. Doing this in a triple nested loop, it's not the most efficient, but this is the JavaScript runner for the structure stuff. I'm gonna eventually be re-implementing it in C++, but my priority for the JavaScript one is prototyping quickly and checking like if my algorithms make sense, not raw performance, so I'm not too worried about that. But at this point here, we're going to find the world height. So basically I want to go, const pos is going to be, I'm gonna grab this code, but instead of going index, or let's go const index is going to be pos to index. Oh wait, no, I can't encode the index out here, but I am gonna go const base pos. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna do this. Basically, I need to store like const y offset or column offset is going to either be structure dot placement is equal to rigid. Oh wait, dot type rigid. If so, then we're gonna set it to 0. Otherwise, gonna do some first immediately invoked function bullshit to closure this. I've been working at a company recently that has been doing a lot of functional programming in JavaScript, and I've learned so many bad habits from that, like with this immediately invoked function stuff. It's just so convenient to be able to just have an expression as the result of a ternary, like, or a block expression. And yes, I know it's horrible, but it's cool, it's fine. It doesn't matter. This sort of code pattern is why I prefer coding langs with syntactic macros, but I understand they aren't practical for code sharing as much. This sort of code structure, as in like the for loop nonsense? Do you plan on multi-threaded world ticking of spatial partitions? We all know how quickly Minecraft simulation time explodes with just a bunch of players. So, hypothetically I'd love to do that, but I have no idea how I would, so maybe? Maybe. My main issue is that, like, I absolutely don't want any sort of non-determinism when it comes to, like... I don't want multiple frames of delay between, like, interactions at the edge of partitions. I'm sure that it's possible to do it without that, I just haven't really looked into it. I've got a lot of blind spots, to be clear. Like, I've basically been working on this project as I go since the beginning, right? I think that having multi-threaded world operation would be very nice. But the main problem is that, like, most of the physics or not physics, but most of, like, the interaction stuff is done in scripting, and I don't want to multi-thread the core scripting environment. Like, I want the core scripting environment to be as single-threaded as possible, because that's how it makes sense to write code as a modder, I think, for the most part. And I want threads to be opt-in, like, computational stuff. So... I might do spatial partitioning for stuff like actual physics, like engine-side physics, and I'm definitely going to multi-thread and microtask animations, but I don't know how much I'm going to be able to multi-thread world ticking. Maybe I'll have some lower-level API that allows you to create kind of world update functions, which are not lambdas, which run in multiple threads, but that would probably be an opt-in thing as opposed to something that everyone's forced to use. Okay, we're gonna grab let y is equal to position, and then let's go const max check dist is going to be 32, and we're gonna go, I guess actually what I can do is go for let y is equal to pos, y is greater or equal to, oh wait, pos 1, y is greater or equal to pos 1 minus max check dist, y minus minus. And we're gonna go if dim.getNode pos 0 y pos 2 is greater or equal to 2. This is a hacky thing here. Error is 0 and undefined, or I think invalid, is 1. And any block that is not those is gonna be 2 or higher. I'm gonna expose a constant at some point for basically, like, non-internal blocks. But if that is the case, then we're going to return. Actually, I'm not gonna encode here. I'm gonna go offset is 0, offset is greater or equal to negative max check dist, offset minus minus. And then I'm gonna go pos 1 plus offset, and then if that is true, we're going to return offset. Just right there. Otherwise, we're going to return 0. Okay, so that'll give us our column offset. And then now we've got the Y here, and I want to get a rotated position. Okay, there's two things we need. We need the index to look at the node. So we're gonna go const ind is cost to index, and that's gonna take the raw x, y, and z, because we're looking this up locally in an array of blocks, and then structure.size. And then the second thing we need is the world position, where we're going to actually place the blocks, which we're going to do by taking world position. Okay, wait, hold on. We're taking the... So this is where the local position goes, and we're going to replace that with x, y plus column offset, and z. And then we're also taking the source fixture's position, and then we're rotating it by the rotation we're trying to place this thing at. So that should give us the world position of everything. Oh wait, hold on, wait, no. That still gives us the local pos, and then we need the world pos by doing this operation here, which just adds the position that the structure has been given in there. And then we're just gonna try and place the node. Nodes ind. Wait. Yeah, ind. Because nodes is... Yeah, that is like all of the blocks to place. Okay, let's see if that works. Hopefully that should cause the terrain, or the structures to conform to the terrain just a little bit. Triple nested for loops is what you were referring to. I have too much affection for esoteric coding languages, though. What languages do you work with? Zeus path X. Okay, well that did absolutely nothing. Did I not have my build tools on? I did not. Okay, that would help. Let's actually build the script. Okay. Structure generate Zeus path X. Okay, still nothing. Weird. Okay. Did it build? Kind of, but it caused... There was an error, or at least a warning. I wonder if that prevented the code from actually building. Type rigid. Okay, that's definitely building. Let's see if it'll place it properly now. I might be just blind. Like, column offset's being added. It looks like this should be doing something, unless it's always 0. Hold on. I'm pretty sure it should work. Structure generate Zeus path X. Still nothing. Okay, something is clearly wrong. Let's see. I'm gonna do a sanity check here. Console.log modern code is running. Smiley face. Structure generate Zeus path X. Okay, modern code is running. So we're definitely running this new code. And then we're going structure.placement.type is equal to rigid. Cool. Did I write the structure files wrong? No, I did do terrain matching. So it should be running this function. Column offset should be, yeah, a number. We're starting at 0, and while we're greater or equal to maximum check dist, negative maximum check dist, we're subtracting And then if the dimension dot get node at this position, wait, pos is, okay, a few things. So first of all, we should grab the actual local position here. So I'm gonna grab, let's go rotate, and then we're gonna do pos 1 for the y value. Actually, sorry, just 0 for the y value. And then we'll add world position to it. So now we should have the world position at the bottom of the column, which is important. Now we're going to use world pos in here instead of the origin position of the structure. And then down here, instead of using the instead of computing the world pos in here, we're going to basically have a new vector, block pos, and we're going to go const block pos is vec3.add, or wait, no, we don't have to do that. We just need to go vec3.add block pos, that's the output, and then world position, and then 0, column offset 0, column offset plus y. And then we're gonna try out block pos here. I'm no longer a coder, unfortunately. I still have a large interest and read about the history of computing and coding languages. Ah, that makes sense. What made you drop programming? Well, could you just not find a job, or like, did you get bored? Zeus X. Still doing nothing. Okay. So what that's telling me is that this loop is failing. Help. Let's see. Because the only reason why it would be generating like this at this point is if column offset was defaulting to 0. Or not. Wait, what? Is air equal to 2? Console.log air. I might be a moron. I might be including air as a valid position here. Or a valid surface. Yes, I am. Okay. I wonder what that final block that I added is. That means there's more internal blocks than I remember there being. Let's go to nodes in here. Okay, invalid, unloaded, and air. Okay. Okay, I see how it is. I did, in fact, have 3 blocks. Okay, if it's greater than air, we'll consider it. And while I'm here, we're gonna actually make this run from max check disk to negative max check disk, because if it tries to place under the ground, it should also go up. Mental illness and chronic depression makes my brain unavailable for it. Oh, that's a shame. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope that you're still able to find things that you find rewarding. Oh, it almost worked. Or I guess technically it entirely worked, just that my constraints are not good. Here, let me go clear debug for a moment. So we placed it down onto the ground, but that includes any random stray foliage that exists, which made it super bumpy and gross. So we're going to modify this to go actually item.get, and this is going to get the item definition for the block there. Then we're going to go dot definition dot world dot what am I looking for? Probably collision dot length is greater than 0. Wait, why didn't that work? What is collision? Object is possibly undefined. Okay. Let's default it. This is my favorite code that I've ever written. It's not horrible at all. Actually, I am gonna make this slightly better, because this is gross as hell. We're gonna go const def is equal to this. Assert it, because it definitely exists if it's in the world. If def.world.collision.length or 0 is greater than 0, return offset. Okay, this is JavaScript here, or technically TypeScript. This is the modding code, and then like the actual native code I haven't even touched. If you want to see what the native code looks like for this, what's a good example? Let's go to like the map generator. Here is some more actual C++ code. Alright. Let's go structure generate Zeus path X. Oh my god! It looks like we've actually got a path that kind of makes sense. Look at that, it's almost like a person made it and not like a computer robot. Why is my alarm— wait, hold— I just got a notification now to stream at noon, and it's 2 p.m. Thank you. Thank you, computer. That's very helpful. Lovely. Mental illness and neurodivergency, chronic depression makes my brain unavailable for large blocks of time for actual coding, and autism gives me a short attention span, so I keep moving from hobby to hobby. I have heaps of coding stuff I'd like to do that I love coming up with, but I'm failing so far getting around to implementation. Well, I think, like, I don't really know your situation very well, but I think that, like, if you have passions and interests, then eventually your brain will normalize to actually, like, doing them. I'd say just give it some time, you know, focus on your mental health. Like, I've definitely had, like, long periods of burnout where I've just not wanted to touch my computer, and it really sucks, but, like, I think our minds are pretty resilient when it comes to things we care about. At least, like, I think that if people continue to want to do something, then they'll find a way to make it work somehow eventually. And just, you know, don't like hold it against you if you need some time to like recover, rest, etc. Woot, conformance working. Oh yeah. Are we rendering some cubes? Yeah, we're rendering some cubes. Hi, Neck. What am I saying? Hold on. I just had like brain fart there. Okay, we are rendering some cubes. Yes, we are, Ned. How you doing? I was realizing recently, when I was recording my my final project video, that I find it really hard to talk clearly and slowly for like long periods of time. It's something that I didn't realize that I struggled with until I started trying to do presentations. And like, for YouTube, it's not that big of a deal because I can just re-record as much as I want. But when I'm on a deadline, like, I'd had to do all of the lines for my school project in not that much time. Like, I only had 1 or 2 takes on each of them. And I hated how I sounded. It was awful. So I'm trying to work on, like, very consciously improving the quality of the words I say. Like, I'm wanting to make sure that I stumble over my words less, because, you know, it's something that I can get better at. It's something that speakers get better at all the time, and I'm interested in at least passively seeing if I can put in the effort to improve on that. Okay, yeah, here, let me clear the debug stuff real quick so that we can actually just see this. So this is looking so much more real, so much, like, with so much less effort than I thought it would take to actually just get it placed down. Like, holy shit, it actually looks like it generated something. That's fucking cool. Scenery looks beautiful and looking over it, as if on a hill lookout. Oh, yeah? Here, let me... I guess this is a kind of big hill. Yeah, I really like these terraced hills. The reason they're not over here is because I kind of clamped the minimum height the hills could be at, and I've been too lazy to mess with the terrain gen. But I really want to have, like, tons of terraces like this in the beginning version of the game, and I want to have like arches and stuff as well, and some floating islands occasionally. My game takes place on an alien planet, so I can afford to be a bit funky with how the terrain actually generates. And I think it's going to be really fun to just mess with noise parameters and get something cool. Something that I'm actually quite excited to work with, which you might notice, is that... oh, ignore that, it's another fact. Like, I actually don't have topsoil rendering on, or like, being generated on some of these cliffs. Like, in Minecraft, every bit where there's cobblestone here would also be dirt and grass, but I set up the generator to have grade-based terrain topsoiling. So, depending on the, like, steepness of the hill, it actually selects a different column of blocks to place. And that's something that's also, like, script definable. And I really like how it makes the cliffs look a lot more like stone. They look a lot more steep and, like, sharp. I think it's gonna let me do some pretty interesting stuff. So, something that I haven't yet addressed here. We're kind of, deceptively, it looks like we're a lot more finished than we are. Because, like, you might notice that the fountains are a bit funky because, like, this whole structure is conforming to the terrain, but the fountain is a structured thing, so it leads to some kind of strange lumpiness here. This is a little bit problematic for what I just coded, because if I go and just turn off the terrain matching part here, if I change this to rigid, and then I try to regenerate a new structure, which I can actually do without restarting the game, because I don't yet optimize the file loads. Structure generate, Zeus, path, X. Clear debug. You'll see that the paths do not conform whatsoever to the terrain. And so there's a couple things about this. Wait, why the hell did this one conform? What? What? Huh? That doesn't make sense. Wait, huh? Why would it sometimes conform and then sometimes not? The only thing I can think is maybe my impossible structure here, for some reason, is occasionally being rolled, even though it's impossible. Hold on. Structure, generate, Zeus, path, X. Clear debug. Okay, that's not conforming, that's not conforming, that's not conforming. Okay, maybe it was the debug structure. Maybe that was impossible, and then I changed how the algorithm worked, and then it became possible for some reason. That was a ghost in the machine, and I'm so confused about it. Hey there, Jaspers. How you doing? Hey there, Xors. I'm not using Perlin Noise, I'm using Simplex Noise, which is basically just, like a newer version of Perlin Noise by the original creator. Did Perlin make Simplex Noise? I think he did, right? Yeah. And it's just a little bit more efficient, a little bit more optimal, but basically the same noise characteristics. Oh yeah, the grade-based terrain makes the cliffs look a lot more realistic. I agree. I think, like, the cobblestone I have here is mostly just for, like, easy visibility that I can still see the ledges until I get ambient occlusion back in. But, like, I do want to have more varied, just, like, stone terrain in general. Something I really like that Mindtest showed me is world-aligned textures, where you can have, like, a larger texture that spans multiple blocks in world space, and I want to do that for my cliffs so I can actually have, like, varied stone textures without having to, like, have a million different blocks. Ned says, I'm good, writing thousands of lines of Angular code the last few weeks, finally getting a nice feeling of Stockholm Syndrome. Lovely, I'm so happy for you. That doesn't sound super great, but, you know, if it works, it works. Simplex Noise was invented because the creator of Perlin Noise patented it. Oh, was it not made by Perlin? I thought for sure it was. Yeah, Ken Perlin designed the algorithm in 2001 to address the limitations of his classic noise function. Simplex Noise is patented. Yeah, no, Simplex Noise is patented, but I think it's only the algorithm. Like, I think it's only Ken's algorithm that is patented or something. I did some research into this a while ago and ended up with the conclusion that I could use the implementation that I found. So I don't know what the exact logistics of it is, but yeah. I managed to optimize my engine quite a bit today. Oh, nice. What'd you do? Yeah, so structure system. First of all, oops. Probably shouldn't be generating path blocks on top of trees, but that's more of a tuning thing than an actual algorithm thing. I basically just need to allow you to specify like groups of blocks that it can be considered solid versus just like checking if it has collision. And then the other thing is that fountain is floating. Fountain floating bad. And the reason fountain is floating is if I go structure generate Zeus path X, you'll see that even though the paths conform to the ground properly, the actual collision volumes for the generator are up here, because we're only actually conforming it when it actually places the blocks on the ground, which is actually quite bad, because it's still basing its check for what is solid off of the initial position of the structure. So if I try and generate a structure up here, it's probably going to, yeah, it's going to give up on a lot of these paths. You'll see that, like, it's kind of following the terrain until it runs out of check distance, and then it just ends up having to be up here anyways. Which is probably actually something where I'd want to constrain the mapgen algorithm to not consider that placement valid if there's just no ground under it. But yeah, for now it's just giving up and placing it where the actual collision volumes are if it's too far down. But something that we want to do probably to A, remove overlapping, and B, make it more reliable at finding the ground, and C, make it so that the non-terrain matching stuff isn't just floating in the air, is when I'm generating the structure, I probably want to scan down at least on all of the attachment points and find where the ground is for them. And then I'll probably set the minimum bounds of the structure to the minimum of those. And then I'll actually like have any subsequent attachment points actually placed at ground level. So the volumes will be extra tall for like one that's on a hill, and then it'll actually match the ground. And then when it's placing rigid things like the fountain, it'll be placing them at ground level. So even though they're not conforming them to the terrain, it should still be at ground height. Open simplex is not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is a variant of open simplex. I'm using fast noise 2, which is an algorithm, or which is a library online by someone I think named Auburn. And it's very, very performant. And it's all like open source licensed, and I believe it is open simplex. If it wasn't, it would be strange, because that would make the licensing of the library invalid. Yeah, oh man, my voice is definitely starting to fade. You know, I always get this when I stream very regularly. My voice gets really robust, and I can just talk for hours and hours and hours without like running out of steam. But then whenever I take like a couple weeks break from streaming and then come back, it's like, oh, 2 hours? Oh, well, voice too pathetic for that. And then I'm just like, yeah. I try to stream every weekend, like around this time, Saturday PST, or noon PST. But I visited family for like a week or two recently, and I just haven't had a chance to do so. I'm trying to think, actually. The thing I just described of having the collision volumes become the minimum of all of the attachment points doesn't actually make all that much sense, because that means that it will have to, or like if blocks needed to be placed lower than that, they could extend out of the collision volume anyways. So the annoying thing is that means I'll probably have to scan the dimension. Yeah, I think I'll have to scan down for every block column that's trying to be placed at generation time, which is not good. An alternative is that I could set the height of any terrain matching volume to the full possible range that it could be placed at. Like, you know, we have the scan range of 32 blocks or whatever, and then I could set the volume to, like, the base volume plus minus that range, which would keep it always in frame, but it would make it harder to actually place, like, structures vertically against each other. There's no easy out for this, is there? Like, I either have to scan the columns of every block, or I need to accept that it's going to be inaccurate in some circumstances, which I really don't want to do. I mean, ultimately, I think I do need to go more into actually scanning the world for, like, the appropriate blocks, because I want to be able to have, structures which are determined by what block they're on, or structures that must be in the ground, or something like that. And that means that I would have to be aware of the world around it. I just know it's going to be so much slower to have to actually pull blocks, and I don't want to do that. Definitely a design consideration. I don't know if I'm going to get into that right now. I'm thinking I might look towards wrapping up the stream because my voice is it's starting to feel very scratchy in my throat, and I don't want to actually lose it. So, yeah, that's definitely something that I will think about, at least, and I'll probably come back next week with a better algorithm, or a better idea of what I'm gonna do. I'll make a decision and then come back. Yeah. Structure, generate, Zeus, path, X. At least if I make everything terrain matching, like I just did again with the fountains, it looks pretty good, aside from the random grass blocks on top of trees, but that's always something that can be tuned out of there. There's also, like, a kind of question of, like, paths like this, where it's kind of like it's matching the terrain probably a bit to a fault. I'm interested in the idea of making the terrain matching work only across, like, one axis if you specify it, so it matches the terrain on, like, the center of this structure only in this direction, and then it kind of conforms the ground around it to make sure that it's not on, like, a hill or whatever, and, like, completely sloped. But yeah, that's another thing to think about. I don't have a solid answer on what I'm gonna do there yet. It's mostly just, that would be cool. Zombo Joe says, what keeps you motivated for so long on a single game? I'm on year 5 now and I can barely stay focused. I mean, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but this is basically all I wanted to do since starting to learn programming when I was, like, 10. So I find it relatively easy to stay focused on it because it's just basically my dream. But, like, I really struggle to focus on anything else. Like, if I work on other projects, it's like, it's always an uphill battle to stay focused. It's like, for whatever reason, this project is the one that breaks that trend for me, and then anything else is just an uphill battle to actually pay attention to and continue to be motivated to work on. So I guess the actual answer I have is follow your dreams, but that's a bullshit answer. Like, I don't know how to help in a general context. I just know what works for me, which is that this project happened to hit all the right boxes for me to want to continue on it. But hey, if you've been working on a project for 5 years, it sounds like you're doing something better than I am, at least, for, like, working on other projects. More discipline, probably. I have a friend who definitely, like, focuses a lot more on discipline and actually, like, knowing it's good for him to keep working on his projects than just random, like, persistent inspiration for one thing like I have. And I'm quite jealous, honestly. I mean, like, it seems like that's a lot more useful in the long run, even though it's, like, more mentally taxing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have any useful advice, I'm sorry. Jasper says, merged meshes and used... Oh, sorry, this is old. I'm sorry. I think I missed your reply. You were talking about how you were optimizing your engine, and you said, merged meshes and used draw ranges. Somehow that improved it quite a bit, which is still weird to me because it's the same amount of draw calls. It's CPU bound at the moment. Merged meshes, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And draw ranges. I don't know what a draw range is. You could store the highest and lowest block value in a chunk so you check less blocks. That's actually a very good idea, yeah, because then I can very quickly know the maximum bounds, and I can check, like, do I need to span additional chunks to find out what the block length is, and I can just, like, wrap it to the chunk height, probably. Yeah, I do like that idea. I might end up doing that. Thanks. Zombo Joe says, fair, I'm losing focus because I'm no longer designing anymore, just optimizing / fixing. That's a hellish thing, like, I don't know. I'm actually kind of the reverse, not in the sense that I'm losing focus, but that I've been spending all this time just working on the engine and not doing very much design, because I'm terrified that as soon as I start getting into designing, everyone's gonna hate it, and I'm gonna, like, realize I'm not actually a good game designer. But that is something that is fast approaching whether I like it or not. I have the structure system to finish, lighting to finish, world saving and loading, and then infinite generation. And then at that point, I basically have to start working on design, so I'm not gonna have that out forever. I'm hoping I can get some good feedback and things so that I don't end up perpetually just, like, stressing out over everything. But yeah, having, like, a paradigm shift can be good or bad depending on, like, if you're motivated to do that new type of work. And it sounds like you're struggling with, like, focusing on optimizing and fixing stuff. Which is definitely my area of, like, I can just zone out and do this, but I know that's not for everyone. Is there a way that you can kind of integrate some design stuff into what you're doing, like, to kind of do a little bit of both? Getting the game fun is the #1 priority? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've been doing this very backwards, and I wouldn't recommend that for anyone else. The way that my project is designed is uniquely kind of stupid in that sense, but yeah, like, getting the game fun is definitely a super, super high priority. And I'm gonna be spending a lot of time sourcing opinions from other people as I work on it, once I actually get to the game design phase. You know, I've been doing a lot of YouTube stuff. I say that, I've got 2 published videos, but I've been working a lot on a 3rd video, and I want to lean into more YouTube stuff in the near future to, kind of get some more public attention on the project and source some early feedback on design. And I'm hoping that's helpful. But I'm also kind of scared of, like, oh, if, you know, the project gets popular-ish, I'm gonna get a million pieces of feedback from every direction and not actually know which ones I should be following, but yeah. Vintage Story is a good example of a Minecraft-style game done well. Actually, yeah, I played a bunch of Vintage Story recently. I decided to try it out, and I was kind of terrified by the fact that it is practically exactly my original idea for what this game was going to be several years ago. I entirely swapped over because I actually thought that that idea wouldn't be able to, like, interest enough people. But I think that Vintage Story is just incredibly well executed and makes it very fun. So it's cool to see that that game exists and isn't just in my head. And it was a lot of fun to play as well. But yeah, it was definitely a bit uncanny playing it and being like, huh, this is like the game I was going to make. I'm glad I didn't end up, you know, double booking, I guess, and creating the exact same thing. But yeah, no, Vintage Story is an excellent example of a voxel game that does well, that isn't just Minecraft. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm probably going to wrap up here to give my voice a rest, but I'll stick around for a few more minutes if anyone has any questions or comments. Now is the time. Just send a chat message and I will respond to it. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you guys a sneak preview of what my next YouTube video is going to be, because you are here. Yeah, I've been working on this video on voxel meshing for a while, which is actually probably good because a lot of people are asking about voxel meshing in the stream. It seems like it's a topic of interest for sure. And it's getting very close to being done. There's a lot of, so all the blue pins are just footage I need to gather from the engine, so that's quite easy. And then, like, there's a lot of gaps in the video section that need to have that. I guess I can actually play a tiny bit with audio here if people want. Let's see. What is like a good section of the video to play? I'm trying to think of like, here, let's do the section on greedy meshing. I don't know, maybe that'll be interesting. That's the question that gave birth to the technique known as greedy meshing. Greedy meshing uses a complex algorithm to identify the best possible layout of quads to cover the most space with the least amount of geometry. Unfortunately, that takes a lot of time to compute, and is usually infeasible for real-time games. In Zephyr, I settled for a much faster, less optimal version, where the engine just grows each quad as much as possible in the positive directions until it's obstructed, and then moves on to the next. This algorithm is a lot less optimal than greedy meshing, but it runs in linear time, and still nets a huge improvement over the naive meshing we discussed before. So far, yeah, I don't know, that's a very, very small sneak peek. This video should hopefully be coming out in like a couple weeks, like 2 weeks is my deadline for myself. I really want to get it out quickly. I really want to like actually exist on YouTube again. It's been so long. It's been like 7 months since I released my last video. And just things got real busy for me. But yeah, I'm super excited to get this video out and start getting more interest in the project and like stuff like that. Thank you. Hey there, Dunwartail, how you doing? I always feel bad when I read a name and I'm like, oh, I'm definitely gonna mispronounce this. I need to just be like more confident in saying it, even if it's horribly wrong. I just need to accept that, you know, people will correct me if it's that annoying to them. Yeah, but I'm really excited to get this video out. I just wanted to show it really quick to say, hey, I am indeed working on something. Please, I'm not crazy. But yeah, if you're interested in that, I mean, if you're on the YouTube side of things, that's my channel right there. But if you are on the Twitch side of things, I'll post a link in chat. There you go. YouTube link, if you want it. It's Dutch, so it's hard to pronounce for people. I don't even know where I would start. I don't know how, like, Dutch pronunciation of words goes. Would it be practical to use the ad hoc meshing algorithm and be running an actual greedy mesh algorithm on a low priority background thread that replaces the ad hoc mesh when it's finished? You absolutely could do that. I don't know if it would be all that efficient for my project, like, just because I think most of the time I'm still thread bounded because mapgen is quite intensive and I want to have a lot of terrain. So, like, I don't know if it would actually be worthwhile for me to do that, since I'm not particularly CPU bound right now. But for a different project it might make sense. Or maybe I'll find that after optimizing the mapgen a bit more, I'll have more CPU time to dedicate to that. But my main solution for handling very, like, large amounts of terrain is level of detail. I want to subdivide the terrain detail, so like it goes down to a 2x2x2 region that's meshed by one block, then 4x4x4, and then so on and so forth. What kind of meshing do you use? I just joined in. I'm using, so I'm using rasterized, or not rasterized, I guess it is rasterized, polygonal meshing. I can't believe I have to specify that now, but lots of people are doing like voxel stuff with ray tracing, so yeah, I am using polygons. And then I'm using a kind of run span-based greedy meshing, where it basically just begins a span and then goes in one axis until it can't go any further, and then extends out into the other axis, which does pretty good greedy meshing. There's lots of larger faces here that are being merged into one. You know, as usual, it kind of breaks down when there's lots of different block types altogether, but, you know, even if a greedy mesh span is only meshing like 2 blocks like this, that's still half the geometry that would otherwise be there. But yeah, there is like a more optimal greedy meshing algorithm that is not linear time like this one. Could definitely create better results, but there's a big trade-off between speed and time here that I'm aiming for more on the speed side of. Hey there, Alan, how are you doing? Do you do it using a binary greedy mesher? I do not. I've not heard of a binary greedy mesher. I'm curious what that is. Doing well? That's good to hear. Binary greedy meshing. Oh, very interesting. Okay. I might need to read into this a bit more. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep. I'm going to look at this, because this looks very compelling. It's a very, very quick way to greedy mesh. Okay, yeah. I'll do some research into that, because I am looking for ways to improve meshing time in general. My mesher is fairly slow, and I'd like it to be a lot faster. I think there'll be complexity to that, because I'm seeing the one that I found at the top of Google, and it looks like, of course, it's mainly constrained to cubic meshes that can be greedy meshed. And while I don't try and greedy mesh things that are non-cubic, like these plants, I do need to pack them into the same mesh, so it'll be interesting to optimize, like, greedy meshing the appropriate blocks and then, like, singularly meshing the other ones into the same chunk. But, yeah, that's definitely interesting. I'll look into it. For the reduced detail meshes, will the textures be reduced, will the textures be reduced detail with MIPS or texture blending? So I'm probably planning on having solid colors for distant terrain. The distant terrain is going to be, like, fairly far in the distance, and I'm probably going to compute either the average or allow you to manually specify, like, a block color that is then placed in the distance for like, the low resolution chunks. And I'm thinking every voxel will have a distinct color. I could do blending, but I think it would be harder to create a mesh that looks appropriate with blending. And at the distance that I'm thinking of having these at, I don't think it particularly matters if they're blended or solid. But yeah, that's all something that I definitely will need to actually implement to see in tune. God, I feel like people have been telling me so many, like, important and interesting things on stream today. I always find, like, people show up and they're like, oh, have you considered doing this? And I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I go research it and I'm like, oh, that's good. So I really appreciate, like, people just asking me if I'm doing things I've never heard of before, because that just helps me learn more stuff, which is really nice. Yeah. Yeah, I am thinking I might wrap up the stream here, though, because voice tired, and I would like to go get some food. So yeah, I'll probably wrap things up here. That's cool with everyone, if you're gonna allow me to leave. Oh, thanks, Alan. Alan said, good videos, you're building up a fan base. I am definitely hoping to do so. I mean, like, it's more of a thing of, like, I know if I ever want to release my game, I need to have people that know it exists and actually want to play it. And so that's been my focus for a little while. Just, like, trying to actually get attention on the project as opposed to developing it, because I've been developing it for quite a while now, and I feel like I've got enough to show and get interest on the project. I just need to actually catch up to making videos about it. But yeah, I'm definitely, like, trying to build more interest in the project, because that's the stage that I think I have to be at right now. And I mean, I think it's going well. It's not like I have a high subscriber count or anything, but I got there with pretty much just 2 videos so far. So I think that's encouraging. Like, I have a bunch of old school projects on the channel as well, which ironically are probably doing the opposite of what I want, because by having them there, it's making people probably think my channel is less focused on the things that I'm working on than it is. But I'm proud of them, so I don't want to get rid of them, and it'll eventually be less of a problem the more videos I have. But like, before I released the sparse spineless textures video, I had, I think, 19 subscribers, so it's definitely going decently well from just creating videos when I get the chance. And I'm hoping that this 3rd video I release on programming stuff will also do well. But yeah, it's all an adventure. I don't know. Nothing is, like, set in stone or for sure. It really just depends on if people see my stuff and actually want to see more of it, so hopefully that works out. Any idea what food? I'm thinking I might go reheat some pizza. I have some pizza in the fridge, and it's been in there for a couple days, and I don't want to have to throw it out, so I might go try and reheat that and eat a bit of it. The 2 videos are high quality, that's what made me click. Well, that's good, I'm glad you think so. I don't want to, like, pat myself on the back and be like, the videos are good. But, like, I'm glad that other people think so, and I definitely strive to do that. What is this, like, no eyeball icon? Oh, you're listening only. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that Twitch shows that. You're here because of the YouTube videos. Okay, okay. I guess that's working then. Cool. Why'd you choose Twitch, though? No, I don't really care what platform people are on. I just think it's interesting. It's just a free badge. I'm also watching. Wait, you can just, like, add it? Oh, weird. I thought it would be automatic or something. It was fun for the last bit I was here. See you next stream. Thank you, Jaspers. Alan says, 2 brilliant videos. The lossless textures gave me a way to explain the concept to programmers. As an artist, those are hard to find. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm glad that can be helpful. I have some issues with that video, like in retrospect. I wish I had done a lot of things differently, and I said a couple things which I don't think are particularly good advice. Like, sparse textures in, like, the actual GL sense are not particularly encouraged in, like, the modern day with graphics pipelines, and I didn't realize that till after. Like, oftentimes what people do to have sparse texture-esque things is they allocate one mega texture and manipulate smaller parts of it, which is basically just atlasing. But, like, yeah, the sparse texture API never really took off that much, which I didn't realize because I was basing all of my information off of a video that I was linked to that was really promising back in like 2016 when it was first talked about, and then a bunch of those APIs didn't exactly come out as planned. But yeah, I eventually want to release a video talking about how you actually do texture stuff good in like the modern day. Like, none of those techniques are wrong, it's just there's better ones out there that I wasn't aware of when I first created it. So that's something I want to do eventually, but I'm focused on getting this voxel meshing stuff out the door first, because that is something I feel like I at least know a decent bit about how I'm doing, so, you know, just trying to present it less as an ideal and more as this is what I've been working on, maybe it can be helpful to you type thing. Twitch allows me to minimize the window and still watch. Oh yeah, YouTube stops when switching apps. Yeah, YouTube's a bit bitchy like that. I mean, there are alternatives. Of course, I would never use them, but there is, like, Revanced and stuff, which I would not ever encourage anyone to use, but definitely do exist and let you avoid the YouTube paywall. But, you know. Yeah. You have apps that allow you to get all the premium... Oh yeah, okay. Dunwartel just responded about that. Yeah. Revanced. There we go. Yeah. Either way, though, I mean, like, it's not like it makes a particular difference to me. I am slightly, like, on a personal level, I'm trying to emphasize Twitch less because I don't like a lot of their policies to do with simulcasting. I'm technically breaking the rules right now by having merged chat. They say that you cannot have merged chat if you simulcast, but I don't really care that much because it would suck if I couldn't do that, or if I didn't do that. But from, like, a viewer perspective, like, I don't care which platform people watch on. Like, they can watch on whatever they want to watch on. I'm just happy people are here. Whoa. Oh, man. You said a bad word and it didn't go through. Hold on. I don't care if people say fuckers in my chat. There we go. I already watched too much YouTube. I'm not going to pay the fuckers to make wasting my time easier. Yeah. I can't believe Twitch blocked that. No, I don't care at all. I'm just surprised it blocked that word. Like, I don't have swear word blocking on. I just have, like, slurs blocked. And I guess fuckers could be considered a slur if you really stretch the word. It's not the type of slur I'm trying to get rid of, though, so I do not care. Yeah. Alright, guys. Well, I had a great chat. This was really fun. I guess it is considered a slur, yeah. I'm more aiming for, like, blocking minority slurs. I don't really care about just coarse language in general, as long as it's not being aimed at me or someone else in the chat. But, yeah. But, that one got blocked too! Okay. Yeah, alright guys. I'm gonna head out for the day. I hope you had a good time. If you wanna chat, I'll be on... I actually don't think I'll be streaming again next Saturday because I'm going to PAX West, which is exciting. First time going. I'm excited to go and see all the cool stuff that's happening there. But I will be streaming probably the next week after that. I also have a Discord, which is linked, and I'll also throw it in chat, because shameless plug is shameless plug. Yep, and other than that, I guess that's it for me. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, Alan. I'll chat with you all next time. Bye, all. Enjoy my night/day. Thank you. It is 2:30 in the afternoon here, so have a bit more of a day left. Yeah. Alright. Bye, all.